One of the biggest battles we face in these stress-filled times is simply staying sane. And according to those in the know, more and more people are losing that battle. 1 in 10 Australians will spend some time in a mental hospital. And right now, as many as 1 in 4 of us are suffering some kind of psychiatric disorder. Not counting, of course, those unrecorded thousands who might simply be called neurotic or highly emotional. Edvard Munch recognised the problems of coping with what we've come to call the rat race back in 1893 when he painted The Scream. A few years ago, the trend was to try talking it all out on a psychiatrist's couch. But these days, the emphasis seems to be on action speaking louder than words. Hence, the so-called action therapies, sessions where people get together for the purpose of screaming, crying, punching, kicking, and otherwise pouring out their emotions in a very direct and physical way. In some cases, they're willing to spend thousands of dollars just to let it all hang out.
Lies, 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 lies. Every word of lies are lies.
Everybody's a little bit crazy, and some people are better hiding it than others.
Well, I'm going to marry one too.
A problem in our family.
I'll marry a Negro.
I mean, you can't go and hit your neighbour on the head, you know, even if you feel like it. But you can come in here and imagine you're hitting him on the head.
Everything about you is that you feel sick.
I feel I've got, you know, the bucket full of garbage and I want to empty it. And when it's empty, then it's going to stay empty.
They call this the ape race, part of a practice known as bioenergetics. The theory is that by exercising your body, you can also release your feelings and improve your mind, a kind of emotional 5BX.
I'd like you now for a moment to look at me.
Gottfried Hoyer came from Germany with a list of credits that reads like a counterculture dictionary. Neo-Reichian vegetotherapy, orgonomy, guided fantasy, dynamic meditation. Gottfried's into the lot.
As you slowly shift your weight from the balls of your feet to your heel, you might come across a point where you feel an involuntary shivering, and you allow this to happen. And breathe deeply and easily. As children, most of us, we have been taught to sit still, don't move, don't laugh, don't shout. Basically, do not express yourself. I try to help people to overcome this barrier put up by our upbringing, to become more free and to dare more to express their emotions. Explore all the movements you can make with your shoulders. Breathe deeply and easily through your mouth. Let a sound out in context with your movement. And imagine that you've been caught by an octopus and you want to free yourself from this octopus.
If you think they're a little crazy, you should hear what they say about you. What could be crazier, they ask, than going through life with your emotions bottled up, being too afraid to express love, anger, or sadness?
For so many years, I haven't cried. And for this weekend, I've done that. And I've learnt a lot through that. And also just the expression of anger.
I do what I want. I do what I want. I do what I want to do. I do what I want. I do what I want. I do what I want. I do what I want to do. Always.
What I want.
I do what I want.
I had tensions, depression, aches and pains. I felt I just wasn't functioning fully as a human being. I felt there was a whole lot there that had just never been allowed to be expressed. The body just took over and demanded that this come out. And what came out was fear. Incredible fear. it's a quality of life issue, I think, that did I want to stay back where I was, or did I want to grow, develop, actualise, you know, potentiate, and all those nice words as a human being.
The cost for 1 weekend of release and reassurance is $45. They found it rewarding. So did Gottfried. Do you make much money out of this? Is it a profitable business, and do you regard it as a business?
I don't regard it as a business because apart from the money, I do get a lot out of it just for myself, but...
You make a living out of it, though?
Yes, yes.
A good living?
Yes.
Seems that a lot of the people who come to you are professional people who are supposed to be helping others, but they've got problems of their own.
Yes, I do think so, yes.
So, in other words, you're sorting yourself out at the same time?
Yes.
This is part of our weekend psychodrama group, and I want to commence our session this afternoon by talking a little bit about what psychodrama is.
Psychodrama, as practiced by Dr. Max Clayton in Perth, is pretty much what it sounds. People act out their troubles on the stage.
Schools and class and people and... not seeing people.
Not being able to dance and do things.
Yuck.
I don't understand.
Teaching, telling me that some people are better than other people. I don't know what you're doing telling a 5-year-old that certain people aren't good to associate with.
Bridget traces her problems to her childhood. She handpicks members of the audience to play the roles of those who've influenced her life. In this case, her parents, brothers and sisters.
I'm going to hold on to you very tight, Bridget. You may have moved away, but I'll still hold on to you.
Well, you can still hold on to me, but I'm going to...
Once again, half the people here are from the so-called helping professions. Psychologists, social workers and so on.
I think that the people in the helping professions are suffering from many personal difficulties, and they're also becoming more and more aware of their difficulties as a result of the work that they do, and often they come forward to work on their personal stuff and maybe even get to enjoy some of their craziness instead of being so fearful of it.
By now, half the audience are in tears.
You've been there.
The way Dr. Clayton sees it, that's important. It means they can share Bridget's burden and reassure her.
Yeah. She's not running away from you at the moment, and she's not running away from herself.
Yes, it's very important that she's not scared of me.
I'll bet you if I keep massaging your head, your headache will go away.
Like a lot of other couples, Denver and Annie are finding that love's first bloom is starting to wilt. Hoping to revive it, they return on stage to their first days together.
Like, I really appreciate you doing this, and I feel like going to bed. I'm just sleeping it off.
I really like being with you, and I like to be with you whether you've got a headache or whether you haven't.
He's reassuring. She's reassured. But a few months later, affection has been tinged by apathy. She wants a hug. He won't give her one. The result? A tantrum.
Give me a cuddle, I want a cuddle.
Oh, bugger off. No.
I want to...
Bugger off! I don't like you clawing and scratching at me. I want you to learn to accept no sometimes for an answer.
All right, I hear you.
I'm not here to provide you with cuddles all the time, whenever you want them. Sometimes I say no.
I hear you.
When the shouting dies down, an insight into each other's feelings and hopefully a new understanding. All for $40.
Notice of me, what I say.
Teo paid a lot more than that for a 6-month course at the Organismic Growth Centre in Sydney. The first 3 weeks were spent in this small room and the garden outside. No books, no radio, no television. The cost? $2,500, and a similar amount for his wife, $5,000 in all. This session room is padded to soften the blows and soundproofed to soothe the neighbours. Primal therapy, or primaling as they call it, is a roots thing, going right back and deep inside to dig out the origins of the personality.
It's your fault!
Experiences are relived and thrashed out. The whole idea is to face up to the truth about yourself, however unpleasant, and come to terms with it. Christine, you strike me as being a quite peaceful, serene person, but you're expressing a lot of hostility during the session.
Yes, I have a lot of hostile feelings that I need to express.
Pent up.
Partly because I'm generally very well behaved.
You stupid blood.
When I started, I didn't really realise that I was as angry as I realise I am now. I think that underneath that hostility, there's a lot of feelings of not getting enough out of life.
You just shouldn't be allowed!
Do your close associates and the people that you're intimate with know that you have these sessions?
Yes.
What do they feel about it?
Some people feel afraid, I think, and they wouldn't want to risk going into something like this.
Why do you say risk? Why would there be a risk involved in doing something like this? Discovering something about yourself you might not want to know?
That's probably it, yeah. Yeah.
You're not gonna get the sort of house you want. You're not gonna get the sort of house you want! You're nuts!
Do you regard yourself as having a problem?
Well, no more than any other human being. No, I think...
But you come here and other human beings don't. A lot of other people wouldn't come to a session like this. Why do you have to do it?
No, well, I don't think it's because I have to so much as because I choose to. I think anybody would probably benefit from this kind of work. You unravel your whole personality, everything about yourself, what you like to know and what you don't like to know.
No!
You're getting a more total perspective on yourself.
The people who run the centre say what goes on here is growth, not therapy. David English and Marnie Collins say they're not trying to cure the mentally ill.
Well, if we came across someone who we had any real doubts about sort of serious psychiatric problems, we wouldn't take them.
Yet they did take this man. And what's his problem?
Oh, you really want to know? Well, for years and years, I have been sort of the man with the coat. I have been exhibiting myself, and I don't like that very much. I enjoy doing it. Let's not get that wrong, but it's not socially acceptable. And I'm also a smoker, which I hate very much. Like.
So you're what people would have called a flasher?
Yes, sort of, yes. It comes from my mother not allowing me to be a man, not accepting that I am. I mean, I have two sisters, and she just made it as if she had 3 daughters rather than 2. So it's sort of like, look, Mummy, I'm a man.
It's cases like Teo's that make one wonder whether places like the Organismic Growth Centre should come under the control of health authorities. Would you have any objection to being pulled under that sort of legal umbrella?
Yes, yes.
Is it because you think your practice wouldn't stand the scrutiny of the law?
Well, we're not qualified.
It's like some sort of invasion of basic rights in a way, because what we're concerned with is people of their own free will choosing to do something that is an intensely personal thing. The expert on me is me, and that applies to anybody.
Self-help, it may be. Unconventional, it certainly is. But if it all seems a little mad, there may well be method in their madness.
I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you.
A footnote. All Australian states except Tasmania either have laws to define and control psychological practices or are planning such laws. But our research has revealed no record of any prosecution in the last few years. The powers that be only act on complaints. And so far, apparently, there have been none.
We've received lots of calls and telegrams wishing us well, for which we thank you. And in future editions, we plan to publish a cross-section of your comments, and that includes your critical comments as well. We want to know what you think. If you have any ideas for stories that you'd like to see, then write to us about them too. But meanwhile, radio commentator Mike Gibson has his own thoughts about what's happened to the art of letter writing.
I guess it's the result of the dramatic improvement in communications in recent years that we don't communicate with each other anymore, certainly not by letter. And in America it's got so sad you can even subscribe to a rent-a-letter agency. They send you a letter every day, and when the postman comes to your box, the next-door neighbours, who don't get any letters either, can peep out the window and see how lucky you are to have so many friends. Here in Australia it's just as bad. Remember the carry-on when the post office announced that all mail deliveries were going to be cut from 2 to 1 a day? Strike me lucky, the amount of mail we get nowadays, there's only need for 1 delivery a week. Bills from the electricity department, bills from the gas department. The only letters I get these days, I wish I didn't. Get bills and handouts and letters drafted by computers. You know, I mean, have a look at this. 23rd inst, 3rd alt. What kind of language is that? Android talk or something? To get a letter, a real letter, written by hand or even lovingly typed with 1 finger. What a luxury. Doing a daily radio show in Sydney and writing a newspaper column for years as I have, I can recall when people used to actually take the time to put down their thoughts on some of the things that I'd written or said. Now, if they disapprove, the sum total of their reaction adds up to something like this. If they really disapprove, they might take the time and the trouble to send you a deeper and even more meaningful letter, like this. With Valentine's Day in the air, the letters we all yearn for, of course, are the ones that Grandad used to send to Grandma back in the good old days when they were courting. When letter writing was an art, when eager young blokes poured their hearts out to young blushing ladies who got the vapours and often fainted right away just reading their passionate prose. The longest, the most emotion-charged letter I've had in the last 6 months was on the kitchen table when I got home the other night. They are magnificent. So, there it is, literary communication in the 1970s. Oh.
Those heartfelt comments from radio commentator Mike Gibson. I'm Ray Martin. Ian, George and I will be back with another edition of 60 Minutes next week.
Faster. And relax your neck.
Well, there's a large part of me that wants to do that, but there's a little part of me that feels tired and.
I'm trying to stay with that look and not escape on my cloud.
Then I would like you to think what you've just said. I would like you to think about whether that's true for you.
Neurotic or highly emotional. Edvard Munch recognised the problems of coping with what we've come to call the rat race back in 1893 when he painted The Scream. A few years ago, the trend was to try talking it all out on a psychiatrist's couch. But these days, the emphasis seems to be on action speaking louder than words. Hence, the so-called action therapies, sessions where people...
And others.
Well, I'm going to marry one too.
A problem in our family.
I'll marry a Negro.
I mean, you can't go and hit your neighbour on the head, you know, even if you feel like it. But you can come in here and imagine you're hitting him on the head.
Everything about you is that you feel sick.
I feel I've got, you know, the bucket full of garbage and I want to empty it. And when it's empty, then it's going to stop.
Or get together for the purpose of screaming, crying, punching, kicking, and otherwise pouring out their emotions in a very direct and physical way. In some cases, they're willing to spend thousands of dollars just to let it all hang out.
I lying, lies, 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 lies. Every word, lies, lies.
Everybody's a little bit crazy, and some people are better hiding it.
They empty.
They call this the ape race, part of a practice known as bioenergetics. The theory is that by exercising your body, you can also release your feelings and improve your mind, a kind of emotional 5BX.
I'd like you now for a moment to look at me.
One of the biggest battles we face in these stress-filled times is simply staying sane. And according to those in the know, more and more people are losing that battle. 1 in 10 Australians will spend some time in a mental hospital. And right now, as many as 1 in 4 of us are suffering some kind of psychiatric disorder. Not counting, of course, those unrecorded thousands who might simply be called